comment does relate to what's in the report here. So cost effectiveness measures pegged towards the full first year of EMUs coming along, so 2016. Obviously, there's going to be less fuel costs, less maintenance with completion of the EMU. How much of that, how much of the factor for that cost effectiveness will be staff time? So, looking at your report, staff time is the reason currently for the large cost differential, but staffing practices not so much. And then reading the report where previously we're running 2 types of diesels, 2 pools of staff, and then extra training for those who were training for EMUs. Staffing costs as part of that cost efficiency, is that a major?
You won't be saving a lot. There's 2 answers to that question. One is you won't save a lot with the staffing practices that you have now in staff time. The big savings are in maintenance, which drops to about a third of what it is at the moment. And in fuel, obviously, because electricity is a hell of a lot cheaper than diesel. The potential saving in costs is what you do with your train managers. And as I see it from the conversation I had, there seems to be a choice between either getting rid of them, which I think was part of the original business case for the EMUs, and have a one-man operation or one driver operation, or get them to do something in addition to what they do at the moment around revenue enforcement, so continue to carry that cost and use them to reduce revenue leakage, which is a problem, and I hope I haven't underplayed that in the report. What I'm saying is you've got a problem with fare evasion, but if you deal with it, there's a cost to it, and don't expect to get a lot of money back, because you're just going to basically get these people off the trains.
Okay. Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you'll have picked up that one of the recurring concerns with the councillors anyway relates to sort of fare evasion, fare overriding, and behaviour. But that wasn't part of your brief, though. Conceivably, poor behaviour discourages people from using the train. I just wanted to ask you about your question on the patronage and in terms how the evaders are included. And one of the reasons for that was because they're made to pay a penalty fee. Did we have any information on what revenue came in as a consequence of people being made to pay penalty fees?
We didn't split that out, but my understanding was, and this was from a previous piece of work, was that if someone's caught evading, they march them down to the machine and make them buy a ticket, and you pay the maximum fare for a trip on that line. So they're included in the I don't know if they're including passengers or not. Council Leave advised me they are. So they're including passengers and revenue. So to that extent, it wouldn't have a big impact on your average fares, which is why I made the comment that fare evasion is not the primary cause of your revenue shortfall.
No, okay. And in terms of comparison with Wellington, you talked to the operators in Wellington. Did they make any comments with respect of evasion, overriding and penalty fees in terms of their revenue or lost revenue?
We didn't talk about lost revenue, but evasion is much harder on the Wellington line, even though it hasn't been on the Wellington lines, even though they haven't got gates. When I travelled there, I got checked every time. But this to illustrate the point, there is a cost to revenue collection. At busy times, they have to have a ticket collector for every 2 carriages. So at times they will have 4 or 5 people on a train checking tickets. So there is a cost to it. But if you don't do that, people start to evade.
Yeah. The labour costs are quite significantly lower than Auckland's, even though with that greater number of people required for that part of the operation.
I'm sorry, can you ask the question again?
I think in the figures, their labour cost was significantly lower.
Yes, it is, yeah, but that's nothing to do with evasion or staffing. But the comment was that the staffing practices are largely the same. You've got a manager and a driver on each train. In Auckland, you have 40 or 50 roving ticket collectors. In Wellington, you have ticket collectors on the train. It's just they're doing the same job. It's just where you put them. Unfortunately, I didn't have access to what the total people complement in different roles was for Wellington, and given they weren't a participant in the study,
405.
there was a limit to what we could actually ask them.
So you don't make any judgment as to what's their most effective practice then in terms of...
They have a different system, and it's clearly more effective at catching or at getting tickets checked. But there's a cost to it. I wasn't able to isolate out what that cost was, other than saying there's a different rate. But you have a cost. You're incurring a cost up here through roving ticket inspectors as well. So it's just a different way of trying. So you've got roving ticketers inspecting gates. They've got no gates, and they've got dedicated ticket clippies on the trains.
Oh, you got no gates.
Thank you. Madam Chair, it'd just be useful to know, and I think people would be interested to know what recovery we get in terms of penalty payments. That would be interesting, certainly in terms of any further work or approach to the government then, wouldn't it? If we're getting virtually nothing back in penalty payments, well, obviously it's an unsatisfactory situation.
That's exactly right.
Yep. Thank you. Yes. Councillor Cracks.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your report. In terms of fare evasion, you don't actually identify the extent, do you, anywhere? I'm just trying to find that, the extent of fare evasion, and is that because once you've scared the fare evaders off the trains, you're not going to recover any fare from them anyway?
Yeah, to be honest, fare evasion wasn't part of the terms of reference. What was part of the terms of reference was why there was a difference in fare recovery and what the reason for the difference in fare recovery was. And the reasons for the difference in fare recovery is the fares are lower because the structure of it results in a different outcome. But fare evasion was one of the points that came out that I was asked to, it's part of the terms of reference, to sort of share good practice. And it's probably the most obvious difference in practice between the two cities. The terms of reference didn't extend to what the outcome of that was. I'm aware that there's a 4 to 6% level of fare evasion on the Auckland network because of a previous piece of work that I did looking specifically at fare evasion, which Auckland Transport has.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just recall a conversation that Councillor Wood and I had with the county's Manukau Police, and they wouldn't allow their staff to travel on the train because of the danger that it posed to staff, because of the high level of people that were evading fare. And when I suggested to them that it was about 7%, they sort of looked at me incredulously and said, no, Councillor, it's much higher. We estimate the fare evasion to be somewhere in the region of 70%. Nothing that you came across would suggest that high level.
I was intrigued at this idea of fare evasion. I went and stood at Britomart and I watched people coming through the gates, and given that 65% of your trips terminate at a gated station, I stood there for half an hour and I watched people come through. Every single one of them came through.
But that's gated, everyone knows that.
I know, and that's where most of the journeys go. That's the point. This was the whole point. Your fare evasion measures here are gating at your busiest stations and roving ticket evaders. Now, on certain services outside the peak hours, out in the far ends of the line, this is where I was having my chats with fare evaders who were doing nothing better than cruising around the network. And there may well be, I'd be surprised if it was 70%.
And
but there'd be a lot.
vandalising at the same time.
I didn't catch them doing that, but I mean, it's interesting. It's a problem that seems to be prevalent in Auckland, but not in Wellington.
But 6% is not a problem.
Thank you.
It's that was yeah. So, but I guess
is that a real figure?
So to answer your question, Councillor, I think I didn't specifically look at fare evasion. The overall fare evasion levels look to be around about what you'd expect for this kind of network. But given the nature of the network, the nature of the city, and the environment that basically some of these people live in, they cruise around on the trains with nothing better to do. That came as a surprise to me, and it wouldn't surprise me if there are quite high levels of evasion. But that said, you've got roving ticket inspectors out there, and I felt very sorry for them. I stood on the station, there were these 6 or 7 people who clearly had absolutely no intention of paying a fare, and there were 2 ticket inspectors with fluoro vests on, talking to them, asking where they were going, telling them they need to buy a ticket, etc., etc., etc. They waited until they got on the next train, and so I waited. The ticket inspector's left and these people all got on the next train. There's absolutely nothing they can do. They haven't got the tools to do their job properly.
So would it be your contention that once you eliminated through various means ticket evaders from the network, the actual impact on revenue wouldn't be that high?
I don't think it will. I genuinely don't, because a lot of these people, they'll find something else to do with their day. They won't cruise around on the trains. But I do think you need to do it, because it's one of these things that if you just leave it, then honest people will start dodging fares.
Thank you. Councillor Filipaina.
Thank you, Chair. Paul, thank you for the report, and you've been acknowledged by several councillors around here. Just a comment through you, Chair, just around your key conclusions. I welcome the first two. That sort of outlines to me around your key conclusions the difference between Auckland and Wellington. But I also, your bottom point on your key conclusions and around the 2016 and the comments you made around improve significantly in 2016. So my question is back to you, Chair, around the process from now. I see that refer the report to the Board of Auckland Transport for information. Will Paul's recommendations that he's included in his report, I'm assuming that the Auckland or the Board of the Auckland Transport will be looking at the whole report, and will they be coming back to Finance and Performance Committee in regards to, I think what's important, the 2016 and the significant savings. I'm hoping that whenever that report comes back, and if it's your one, Chair, I welcome that, but hopefully with the Board of Auckland Transport, they include the savings for that full year with the EMUs.
Yes, thank you.
But again, thank you.
It will be either this committee or
Cool.
the CCO review committee.
Okay, thank you.
Looking at the Chief Financial Officer from Auckland Transport, and he's nodding his head very rapidly.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
That'll be good. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Casey.
Well, Paul, just to return to a question that Councillor Lee asked you about his memo that prompted this investigation, you didn't take that into account? You didn't look at Councillor Lee's figures at all?
So I did get I looked at both sets of Councillor Lee's figures, and I was provided with the information that Auckland Transport sent to the Mayor's office in response to that. The difference was basically, as best I recall, the difference that I have on page
16 of your one.
Yep. On page 16, I think the numbers in the board memo were 143.6, and the numbers that went to the Mayor's office were 139.3. The difference being that there was a double count of security costs that was included in the 139.3 that was added on in error. Would that be correct?
Why are you working on that earlier one when that wasn't the authorised memorandum? It seems kind of odd. You're setting up a straw man.
Councillor Lee. Councillor Lee.
Well, he's asking me a question. He's asking me a question, Madam Chair. Am I free to answer it or not?
Councillor Lee.
You know, you're not working off the memo that the council authorised.
Order. Can you?
Seems a bit strange to me.
Can you? I actually made the point at the beginning of the meeting that this report came from your memo requesting
No,
it.
but it's not in his report. He keeps going back to an earlier one, which...
Councillor Lee. Deep breath. Thank you.
That's about a $60 million difference
Thank
rather than a
you.
$65 million difference.
Thank you. I think we have to learn to be polite to visitors in this chamber. Thank you.
Just looking for the
Thank
fire alarm button again.
Sorry?
I was just looking for the fire alarm button again.
That's the problem. Look, it's been moved and seconded. I'd like to thank you very much. As you've heard round the table, it's a very clear report. It certainly gives us a basis, as Councillor Fletcher so rightly said, and it is a shame that Councillor Wood is away, but he is riding trains overseas as we speak, from what I can gather. So I'm sure he'll have some good reports to have when he gets back. So
Hope he's paying his
thank
fare.
you very, very, very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I'll move
Just-
recommendations. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much.